So you're interested in product management, you've taken a certification, you've started preparing. The big question now is, where do you start? Which role do you pursue? And how do you actually make your pivot into the role? My name is Daesang, and I'm a product leader and adjunct professor. So one of the big questions that people have is, how do they get started in an actual product management role? They're interested, they're ready to make the pivot, but where do you start? Because you'll hear about all these different roles that all sound similar, but coming in, you may not know exactly how they're different and which one makes the most sense for you. So let's say you've taken your certifications, right? Whether it's understanding agile better, whether it's understanding product management principles better, so maybe a Scrum Master certification or a product owner certification. Those are some of the common ones. One way that people make the pivot, especially if they have a background in project management, is learning about being a Scrum Master and finding a way to transition into product management that way. So a Scrum Master is essentially a coach. Think of a coach for the team, and their job is to make sure that the team is implementing and following through on the Scrum framework. So they're essentially making sure that the team is following through on the principles, the values, the different ways of working. You can also think of a Scrum Master as a servant leader. They're there to help coach the team. They're helping remove any roadblocks or conflicts that exist. And essentially their job is to make sure that the team is focused on getting work done and they're maximizing their capacity. So they're not taking on anything extra that they shouldn't be taking on, and they can be hyper-focused on what needs to be delivered, for example, during a particular sprint. The product owner role is another popular one that serves as an entry point into product management. So your product owner is essentially managing the day-to-day work of what needs to happen with the Scrum team. So if you think of your product manager as being the one defining the strategy and the vision and the success criteria for a product, your product owner essentially takes all those things and uses it while working very closely with the team to help make sure that the work that they're doing is reflective of the overall strategy, and it's also delivering value. So that piece is very important. The product owner is close to the measurement of the value that's actually being delivered, both for the business and also for the customer. And so they're managing that process day to day, working very closely with the team. The product owner also helps clarify any questions the team will have. They are making sure that what's defined by the product manager is what translates to the team's, the Scrum team's understanding, and that is reflective in the user stories and the acceptance criteria, for example. So once someone has product owner experience, now they're actually hands-on with some of the product work. And so the next step there is to make a pivot into a product manager role. So you're already coming in with familiarity, you're already executing day-to-day with the team on the work, and now you're simply transitioning into that product manager role, which is more strategic. It takes into consideration all the tactical things, but it's helping, again, define the strategy, the vision, and the success criteria for the overall product across its life cycle. If someone is earlier in their career or even coming directly from school, another popular role is the Associate Product Manager, or APM. These roles usually serve similar to an apprenticeship. They are offered by a lot of big companies that have APM programs where folks can come in, they can learn and understand product management. They're actually rolling up their sleeves and getting involved. So maybe they're helping with the customer research, maybe they're helping gather data, but the role is earlier. It's definitely more junior than a product manager role, but at the same time, folks are still gaining experience that they can use because this serves as a stepping stone into the product manager role. In some cases, you have folks who come into product management directly into the role of a product manager. And that depends on, the person's background, if they have similar experience that is transferable, if they have some type of product manager experience from before. So when you're in that role, you are responsible for the entire life cycle of the product. You are defining the strategy, you are defining the functional requirements. You're also working with the team to figure out the timelines for feature releases. So in that role, you are truly owning the product, you're responsible for the outcomes, but you don't have all the responsibilities by yourself, right? So there's a lot of coordination that needs to happen, a lot of collaboration. So you're working very closely with design, you're working very closely with engineering, you're testing folks on the team, but also even more broadly, you're also working with marketing, with sales, with legal. So many parties are involved and contribute to the work that product managers do. So when you're in that role, you are collaborating with a lot of different folks. You don't necessarily have the authority to do everything, but you are in a role where you can influence the outcomes. Within product managers, it's important to note that you have different types. So for example, you have your core product manager. Think of this role as a generalist product manager who are focused on delighting customers, adding value to customers, and oftentimes this role is also working on the front end aspect of the product. Similarly, you have platform product managers. So these folks are working on the systems and the programs that support the long-term growth related to the product. So they could be working on APIs, but certainly on back-end processes that are necessary for the growth, and oftentimes they're a lot more technical. You'll also have growth product managers, and their focus is on growing the customer base, continuing to drive adoption for the product. So ultimately, they're looking at different ways, to continue to expand, but also add more revenue opportunities for the product as well. Similarly, you have data product managers. So the data product managers, of course, as the name says, they are hyper-focused on data. They may be working on products that are database, but sometimes you also have them focus on just the overall data-driven insights that come from the testing that you're doing and all the information and analytics that you're getting to make those decisions throughout the entire life cycle of the product. So those are some of the roles when you think about how to make that pivot into product management. Depending again on where you are you earlier in your career? Are you coming directly from school? Do you have some experience that may be transferable coming into product management? Or have you had experience in product management before that you can bring into the role? So those are many different things to think about. It's also worth noting that depending on the size of the organization, that will also influence what type of roles are available to you as well. So depending on your situation, make sure you're taking a look to see what makes the most sense for you. If you have any questions, I would love to hear down in the comments. Let me know. We can certainly expand on this based on the questions that you have. But if you haven't already subscribed, I would appreciate that. Definitely hit the subscribe button, like this video, and watch an additional video while you're here. And thanks again. I'm Daesang, and I'll see you in the next one.